Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today we want to talk a little bit about Google Analytics and alternatives. This is particularly useful if you are a B2B or if you manage people's websites or you manage a website of your own. You kind of want to see about how much traction your site's getting, but you do not want to rely on Google Analytics, which is the undisputed king of data tracking, outside of, groups like Facebook that don't have a full analytics platform for your website, we should say. Now, of course, if you are running your website on a cPanel, you do have some analytics in the background. Most people don't even realize they're there. They're very buggy. They're very bulky. They're ugly, hard to use, are not particularly useful, but you can glean some information from them. And if you've had your website running for years and years, it's probably eating up half of your server space and you do not even know it's there. Very interesting. We're not talking about that today. Today, we want to actually get into a real Google Analytics and alternative that's going to give you a lot of the same functionality without a lot of the nonsense down behind it. And so what I wanted to look at here is, as I'm looking at my clients, one of the big problems that we have is that the data that Google needs, you really can take that analytics data and you can really de-anonymize somebody, whether or not you're trying to be GDPR compliant or not. We are actually, in the businesses I run Google Analytics for, is GDPR compliant, yet still, since we run Google Analytics and you run an e-commerce store and you run Google Ads, you can tie a specific ad to a specific sale to a specific user, and then you can see what other sites that user visited, even though it's quote unquote anonymized data, but they bought a product from us, so we know their address and their name. Okay, that's the type of stuff that Google Analytics scarily allows you to do, and that's something that we want to push away from. Now, of course, we're releasing this video now because at the end of this month, I'm recording this video in early June 2023, the end of this month, July 1st, Google Analytics is shutting down the old Universal Analytics code, which most of the web is probably still using, and they're replacing it with GA4. Some businesses are not excited to go to GA4. Some businesses are looking at all this and going, I don't know, I kind of want data analytics, but Google is getting crazy. And so what alternatives are there? We're going to look at this. But before we actually do look at this, what I want to talk about here is, first, we covered this article a few weeks ago on the Weekly News Roundup. Steam is ditching Google Analytics because of privacy concerns from customers. Of course, you can embed Google Analytics not only in a website, but also in an app. You can put it inside of other programs. You can do a lot of other stuff with it. You can put it in newsletters and stuff like that. So with that, this is what Steam is doing. There is another group here that ditched it. So dreamdata.io, 7 reasons they ditched it. They had different concerns than I had. Mostly my concerns deal with the privacy of handing all this web data, especially if I want to see who's actually visiting Switch to Linux. Like, I don't need to know IP addresses. Who are you? But I would like to get an idea how many people visit the site, how many people are showing up, because this is useful information. If we're working with sponsors or we're working with affiliates, oftentimes they'll ask you this data. How many people come to your website? How many people visit your channel? Who's visiting the channel? Easy information to get. Who's visiting the website? Not so much without some form of analytics. The problem is I do not want to run analytics on my site. And if you're running uBlock Origin, you're blocking analytics, so you're invisible to me anyway. And so that does really raise the question of what else can we do? So I go on over to Alternative 2. Alternative 2 is a great source for you to go to find alternatives to anything from web-based programs to just little tiny stuff that's on your system. Now, I like Alternative 2 because I can poke around and prod around and see and experience a few things. So over here on Google Analytics, what I did here is I find it on Alternative 2. I click Alternatives to Google Analytics, and now I'm kind of want to limit down what I see. Like, this is freemium open source type stuff. We have paid open source type stuff. We have freemium open source. We have freemium proprietary. So I really want to see what alternatives we have that are explicit to the functions I need. So for platforms, I want self-hosted. I want to keep all my data local so that I'm not relying on any third-party company. All the data is on my own servers. Web application type, I want to do web analytics. And I can actually add privacy focused to it, although I'm not 100% sure if privacy, let's see, let me try privacy focused as well. And then I do want to look at open source. So I'm not as interested in the free or freemium. The first option here is freemium. I don't like the freemium stuff because oftentimes it's a way to get you into the software and then we're going to sell you all sorts of stuff. Now, sometimes the sales goes in a good way and sometimes it's in a bad way. One software package I've looked at in the past, and I don't recall if I did a video on it or not, I might have, is called accounting. So, of course, I use GNU Cache for all of my accounting, and I have some tutorials on that. But with that being said, I was poking around to see, are there any good web-based systems out there? I looked at accounting, I played around with it a little bit. It had a lot of fundamental problems. First and foremost, none of the data is encrypted. Secondly, though, it didn't have even basic backup features without adding in extra plugins. It didn't have basic accounting ledgers. It didn't have accounts receivable, accounts payable by default. All those were plugins. The problem with the plugins, I'd be happy to buy them if I could buy them and install them onto my server, sideload them on. After all, it's a self-hosted server, right? The problem is they didn't want to do that. They wanted me to give them an email address, tie my accounting server into their server, and use an API to download the plugins. Nope, not happening. And that's the problem you get with a lot of freemium sources. So anything in here that's freemium, I threw it out automatically. Here's a paid open source. That's not bad. I want to see, is there a self-hosted paid solution? I think this might be the one I poked around at initially, and you can self-host it, but it's seriously limited, if I remember correctly. Goat Counter, freemium, and the OpenWebAnalytics. This is really the one that I end up moving towards because it had a lot of the functions I was looking at. There's a few other ones. I found some that their websites weren't active. They weren't updated for a long time. They required Docker, things like that. The reason I went with OpenWebAnalytics, it's simply based on PHP. It's low memory system, which means it works installing side by side to your website on a cPanel. So the average user out there that needs to have something going on with their website probably has a cPanel, and with that cPanel, you can probably add a subdomain so you can add your own self-hosted analytics and get the Google data that you might need without Google in the middle of it. So you can install this on your own server, and that's exactly what we are going to do. Now, I went ahead and installed this already a little bit ago. I blasted it out on the Matrix server for anybody that wanted to come around and poke around on the site to look at it first. And basically, this is the information that we get. Let me go back to the dashboard, and who knows if we got more visitors or not. So it looks like we have 2 visitors with 29 unique page views on the site right now. I'm expecting this number to jump up a little bit. Like I said, this has only been installed for about half an hour or so. And so with this, I can actually come over here to the dashboard, and I can see the top page views. I can see here's the page views. Here's the page types, which I don't have set. Entry pages. This are where they first landed on the website. So this person landed on the website specifically at the comprehensive guide to Pi. This other person landed on the website at the home page. Our exit pages on the site, they both appeared to leave at the same spot, although the one person I know played around a little bit. So here's your basic visitors, and here's your domains. So if your IP address is tied back to a specific domain, that will show up there. Here's your visitor loyalty, visitor age, browser types. So it looks like everybody used Edge. Operating systems, looks like everybody so far used Windows. Oh, that breaks my heart. Oh, well, that's fine. And then over here on your traffic, you can see how they found it, inbound links, search engines referring. So Yandex is a search engine people found it on. And then there's a lot of other features that we can see, and you can set up multiple different sites inside of this as well. So we'll go ahead and walk through the rest of this video. We're going to be going ahead and showing you how to set this up on your own server. Here we are on the OpenWebAnalytics page. And what we're going to do over here is we want to grab the files that we need, and then we're going to walk through the various steps. So first we have some demo over here. So you can scroll down, and actually I think it's at the top. I don't know, somewhere around here you can see the demo page, which I have over here, and you just click on these, and it's going to again send you over here to your basic dashboard. So here's the website that we have. We have our documentation, bugs, donate, and then here's our basic dashboard. You can see how the analytics are working. We do have some e-commerce options. If you're tracking sales of anything, you can go ahead and plug that in. We're not going to be looking at this feature today. Today, we're just talking about getting it installed and plug it into your site so you can start getting the basic analytics. And then we'll come back a little bit later and work with it a little bit more. But you can see here that it'll list you the top pages people are visiting. It'll list you the entry pages where things people first landed, the exit pages where people were when they left. It'll track some different things, although there's a lot of features that you can enable and disable. I know by default, unless they changed it in a recent version, by default it does have the ability to track IP addresses, although that's something you can easily change inside of your settings. So that's what it's going to look like. So overall, this looks exactly like all I need. I don't need all the crazy stuff Google Analytics is doing. So let's go ahead and get this guy installed. As we said earlier, though, this is not the absolute perfect solution, but we'll see. And hopefully as more and more people move to it, it'll get better and better over the years. So head on over here, hit the download from GitHub page. This is going to take you to your releases. You need to grab the release files. So in this case here, I'm going to grab the package tar, OWA178. If you go and download the source code, this is going to throw errors. You don't want to download just the basic source code here. You'd need to build that, whatever else. So just make sure that you are on your releases and grab the release files. Of course, you can go and grab some other, you can go ahead and grab these old ones if you happen to need the old ones for whatever reason. So now that we have that, now we're going to walk through our setup. Now there's a few things that I've already done here for the interest of time, because we would need to wait for the SSL to generate and stuff like that. So I already created the subdomain, but let me go ahead and walk you through that. First and foremost, the cPanel recently removed this separate subdomain section. So there used to be a section in the tools, and by the way, this is the new Jupyter theme, which I think everybody hates. Except like 2 people at cPanel, and everybody's been complaining about it, but they still foisted this nonsense on us anyway. Pardon the design if you're used to a different looking cPanel. This is the latest. So they have removed the subdomain tool that you used to use. All subdomains are now managed inside of domains. And it's janky. And what I mean is if I want to go ahead and put in some extra subdomain here, I was having some issues. So type in subdomain and then .switchedtolinux, and that was throwing some form of error. And somehow you can get a separate thing sliding in down here. This is what I mean. This is the latest cPanel, and it's getting jankier and jankier. There it is. See, that's what I was waiting for. I have no idea how to get this thing to actually show up. So we need to create the subdomain down here. Get rid of this? I don't even know anymore. Okay. We just need that subdomain. Let's do subdomain dot. See, this is what I want. This is why I mean this is janky. This is not... this is just something that they have just recently done and figured it was a cool thing to do. Switchedtolinux.com. There you go. That's going to allow me to create the subdomain. Now, you have the option now to put it inside the home folder or outside. So this guy here is going to put it inside the public HTML. I personally do not like this methodology because you can land on this from the URL of your website. If you do not do this, it's going to put it in the root directory above your public HTML. This is my preferred way of doing subdomains. And then hit submit, and that will hopefully create your subdomain. And so that's how to get the subdomains on. cPanel has done this. It's crazy janky these days, but that is unfortunately the reality. That is why a future video, we're going to be looking at some more cPanel alternatives, because on top of being janky, and top of this used to be completely flawless, and then moving us to horrible themes, Now they keep on raising the prices over 30% over 2 years. My server costs have gone up, I think, 30 or 40%. And we're looking at other alternatives, but we'll get into that. That's a rant for a separate video. Next thing you want to do is just make sure that you have your SSLs installed for your subdomain. So we can see we're using analytics.switchedtolinux.com, which I went ahead and added it, and the SSL is on there. Of course, cPanels also become janky with getting SSLs installed, so that's why we want to do that step as a separate. And then the last place we're going to go is File Manager. So into your file manager. Now, here's what I mean by above or below your public HTML. By default now, cPanel wants to put your subdomains inside of this folder, which means you could literally get to them from your actual website, and that's problematic. So I want them to be up above my public HTML so they are not accessible except by the domain analytics.switchedtolinux.com. So now we're going to go ahead and get in here, and I already did some tweaking to the PHP. I'm going to walk through that in a bit because it does turn out that despite OWA says it works with PHP 8, it really doesn't yet, and that is kind of a problem because PHP 7 branch is considered out of date at this point in time. Fortunately, many cPanel installs will let you manage subdirectories with different PHP versions. So what we're going to do is we're going to upload the package tar file, and let's go ahead and put that up where it needs to be. So that's going to get up there pretty quick. And once that is done, of course, it wants to default to reload that in a new page for some reason. Let's go ahead and get back into here. And now that we have this package tar, we're going to extract it, and we can just go ahead and extract it right here. Now, of course, if you're used to like using FileZilla and stuff, I would definitely do that. That's my preference, but I just want to show you how to do it without using any extra tools. So inside of here, we no longer need this. Let's go ahead and delete this just to make sure that it is not getting anywhere. All right, so that is there. Now let's go ahead and look at our PHP versions. So first, our multi-PHP manager. You can see I'm on PHP 7.4. Ideally, I would like to see that up to 8.1, but I'm having problems at least with the install. Maybe we'll try running it on 8. And I was looking through some documentation, and some people are having problems and some people aren't, so it probably has to do with PHP modules available in cPanel, but I don't know. So right now we're going to go with what works. So the other thing we're going to do is PHP INI editor and select our location, and make sure your errors is disabled because there are a lot of depreciated things inside of this. So hopefully it will still continue to work in the future. But if you don't if you do not disable display errors, you're going to have a screen full of crap. We don't want a screen full of crap. My system defaults to like really low file size, so I went ahead. I just went ahead and bumped up memories a little bit and upload file sizes a little bit. The other thing is inside of our system here, the one factor that they do say in the technical install is safe mode should be disabled. So that's how you would do that. If it comes to the point where I have to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But as of right now, I have not gotten it. At least I've gotten to the install page without actually having any problems with that. So we don't need to mess with that right this moment. So now we're going to go to our site. Let's go to HTTPS and analytics.switchedtolinux.com, and then we want to go to the install.php. Now, this is going to get us our information. Oh, and I forgot to do one more thing because, of course, I already did it as well. And we need to run through our database creator. So we're going to use the MySQL database wizard. I know I need to click apply. I'm not going to change those. So over here, I like using the wizard, and this is going to create a database and a user and add permissions for that. So if you just want to go ahead, I'm just going to do this one. I'm just going to call this delete me because I don't need it. So go ahead and do delete me. And then I like having my database username and my username and my database to be the same. That allows me to match them if I need to manage and delete them later. Go ahead and push your generate password. I've copied that password. I've used that password, create user, and then hit all privileges. So make changes or next step. Now this created this. Now I'm going to go back and delete those. I've created real ones. They are in this blocked out mess over here that I have edited out of the video because no, I don't want you to see those, but we're going to go ahead and install this guy. So that's the last thing you need. You need your database and your user. So let's go ahead and hit our get started button. We're going to go with our public URL. So here is what we want, https://analytics.switchedtolinux.com. Type of database, MySQL. And then our database host. This is, for most cases, it is localhost. So if you're using like a really old GoDaddy server, get a new server. But for the most part, it should always be localhost. If it's not, and you do not know that you have a weird configuration, you should be questioning that because this is fairly standard. So database name and the username, again, these are the things that I always keep the same. And then you need that database password that you created. Go ahead and hit our continue button. And now we're going to do a default site and user. So this is the domain for the site to track. We're going to go switchedtolinux.com. And we're going to do an admin username. And I'm going to go ahead and enter in a username here. And then we're going to enter a password, or excuse me, we're going to do an email address next. And then we're going to do a password, which usually I will use KeePassXC and have a random password generated. I'm just going to make up some random stuff. Of course, I can't see what that is, and I probably can't copy that. So let me go ahead and do that over here in the blurred out section here, and paste that in. And I'm going to go ahead and save that so I don't lose it. Go ahead and enter that. And now we have our OpenWebAnalytics installer success. The installation is complete. OpenWebAnalytics has been successfully installed. Log in using your username and password and generate a tracker. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Enter in our username and our password. And now we need to do a tracking tab. All right, so we have, let's see, domain for Switch to Linux. The site ID is over here. And to track page views using JavaScript, cut and paste this into your website. And to track pages using PHP, I could download this, download and use this guy here. Let me see what that guy is. Let's see, OpenAnalytics SDK for PHP. So this is going to make, let's see, easy analytics. So you can easily, as web analytics code PHP application, you can get started using SDK via downloader, latest model, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going to do the JavaScript one for now, and I will investigate that for another day. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and add this to our website. Now, this is going to be completely different depending on how your server is set up and how your website is set up. So, of course, if you're doing something like WordPress, this is going to have to go probably in your header file in preferably a child theme, unless your theme has a spot where you can put tracking scripts. So there's a lot of a little different stuff in there you can do. In my case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down into here and make sure before you make any changes to your website, grab yourself a whole backup of it. Now, in my case, I already have a backup. I pulled one just the other day as I can make some adjustments. So I'm going to do the risky thing, and I'm simply going to edit the page here, and I know exactly what I'm going to be looking for. Of course, can I please have the whole screen? Of course they don't want to give me the whole screen. Why would they give me the whole screen? I'm going to put it just above my header tag and hit Save Changes. And once those changes are saved, let's go back to my website, switchedtolinux.com. See, nothing is broken there. Right click and we're going to view page source. And now we can see that my analytics tracker is on over here. So that is how we can go ahead and get it set up. Now I'm going to play around with that other means of installing it on a different site. Maybe I'll play around with that a little bit because it might be better to load it with PHP rather than loading it with JavaScript. So, but for now, we're going to do the JavaScript because it's fast, it's easy, and that's going to start giving us our data. So head on over to Switch to Linux, play around on the website, and then I'll go ahead and pull the statistics, and we'll do a follow-up video in a few weeks and see what type of data that we see on the site. All right, so there we have her setting it up. Is this the best overall solution? I mean, I think that this is a really good in-the-middle compromise. It is a good free and open source software. It's not without its bugs. The first bug, I had issues installing it on PHP 8.1. Other people did not have issues installing it on PHP 8.1. That might have to do with the specific PHP modules installed, and I wasn't going to go around poking and prodding through the modules installed. I just rolled back to 7.4. It might still work now that it's installed. It might work fine on the on PHP 8. We'll go ahead and have a look at that down the road a little bit. It did throw me a few errors. It did take me a few times to try and fix the bugs, but mostly that was just me doing a few stupid mistakes that have been edited out of this video because I don't want to put up information that will lead you astray that isn't the right solution, that was just me making a bad decision. Oh well, we got rid of all that kind of stuff. But this really is a good way for you to host your own analytics on your own website to have more privacy focus. And as an extra bonus, as we saw there, you can install this with a PHP token instead of JavaScript. I did the JavaScript because it's the fastest and it's the easiest. Although a no script blocker is going to block the traffic, PHP implementation will not block the traffic. It will make it very difficult for people to get around that, if not impossible for people to get around that. So, and it will continue to block with ad blockers and such like that running. So there are some good options inside of here. It's not the perfect software, but it is the software that's going to respect your privacy, give you control of your data back, and is easy to install on any hosting control panel that you might happen to have. With that, guys, thanks for watching. Reach out to me if you want help installing this. We'll work out some rate if you want help with this, and we'll go ahead and talk about that down the road. This is the type of stuff that I do as my regular day job, so I can add a few lines to that. With that, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.